Has anyone ever said, "Did you see that?" Or, "How could you not? Would you just pay attention? You'll see it if you just pay closer attention." Really? Hmm. Not that it's that word just. Yeah, let's get rid of the just and find out how to make really seeing things happen. Hi, it's Gretchen. And yes, that whole idea of, didn't you see that? Or, if you just pay closer attention, you might see it. And if you look more carefully and there it is, and you'll notice it. You'll see. You'll see. Hmm, not always. And you know, but you don't have to like give up and say, "Oh no, I just don't see those things," because you can train yourself to see them. Learning to see things in a different way is a learning experience. That's why they say learning to see. And paying attention to those things and being observant is a skill that you can learn. So I came up with some things that hopefully might help you with a little bit more of that close observation stuff. But hopefully they're pretty practical. Yeah, I have some practical ideas. At least they're practical in my mind. Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to suggest is that you do a shadow study. And that's a thing that you pay attention to just out and about in your attention to shadows. Spend time observing how light casts shadows throughout the day, not just at one time a day, but throughout the whole day. Find one spot, perhaps, and go back to it every hour in the day and see how the shadows cast on it change the way it looks. Are there shadows? Are there no shadows? What's happening? And in different environments. Look for that in all kinds of different environments. Notice how the shadows change in, I don't know, intensity and direction, shape. Remember those shadow monsters we would make as kids? Details and texture. Oh, did you ever get in trouble as a kid? My mom would say, "Don't touch that. Don't touch that." Because I was always wanting to rub something and see how it felt and feel the textures. Those details and textures can make all the difference in a photo. Practice focusing on those small details and textures within any kind of scene that you're looking at. That where you're paying attention to shadows, then follow it up with look at the textures and the details. How do those change when they intermix with the shadows and the light? You can be zooming in on something, or you can observe something from a distance to see how it changes. Look in all kinds of different places. I tell you, one of the best places to go to look for textures and patterns and details is go into a fabric shop. Oh my goodness. Or go into um, a hardware store that has reclaimed things and see what the textures of the old things and how they organize. It's just amazing to look at those details and things. Yep. Man made elements, natural elements, doesn't matter. Just the details and the textures. Next, we have street photography. Oh my goodness. Oh, as my friend Doc says, this is something you have to get used to, you know, and not worry about getting punched. I always tell him that wildlife doesn't punch back, but I street photography is one of those things that gives you, oh gosh, it moves fast. you have to train your eye to quickly observe, to catch things on the fly. Because, yes, in some street photography, you sit and you wait for the person to walk down a certain way to make that perfect picture. But in a lot of street photography, it's catching that person in the crosswalk or that reflection in the building or the way the cars are crossing. It trains your eye to catch things quickly. It is not the most comfortable thing to do for some. For others, they find it a lot of fun. But even if you never, you don't have to take film or anything like that, but you can think to yourself, what would I snap a picture of? If you first just practice going out as if you're a street photographer, but you don't have your camera with you and think, oh, I would take a picture of that. Or, oh, there. Oh, look at that person. Oh, what about that? Look at the crack in the sidewalk. See what happens. See what you get in that area of photography and exploring urban landscapes. It's quite an adventure, and it's a great way to train your eye. Now, my next one, reflections and mirrors. Oh, reflections are some of my favorite things to do. You can experiment with capturing reflections of just the reflections in puddles, on lakes, in buildings. One of my most successful photographs ever was after a rainstorm in Portland, and there was a glass building across the street, and the cars that were parked on the edge of the street reflected up into the glass building. And it was great. And I turned it into a pano, and it was just one of those fabulous things because the street lights, the street poles and everything, the light poles reflected in the building and made a kind of a wavy kind of aspect. You get just such cool uh, shapes and things that you don't necessarily notice, and you can find things in those reflections. Mirrors are another thing. It's what happens when you take a picture of someone who's looking in a mirror. How does it look like setting things up? How does that change the angle of what you're doing? Just paying attention to it. You might not find it a fun thing to do, but paying attention to how that reflection works, how that mirror works, what it does, how it changes the image and what you see. It's all about training your eye. Okay, here's the next one, color studies. And the kind of color studies I'm talking about here are actively seeking out a, a group of similar colors. So, a specific color theme or a color palette, maybe they're not all the same within the same color family, but it might be a palette of a variety of different things, but finding a palette or a theme and seek that out and look at how those colors interact with each other, how they create the scene, what they do to enhance the image or the landscape, whatever it is, and just start to understand your perception of color and focusing in on what they do within a composition. I recommend grabbing yourself a color wheel and just looking at how things go together. Go to a paint store and look at the paint chips and put different colors together and see how they interact. And then head out and look for palettes that appeal to you and look for palettes that don't and see what it is about that color that draws your attention. And last but not least, my favorite, monochrome and black and white. Oh, turn your color off on your camera. Set it to monochrome if you can, and take pictures that you might normally take in color, take them in black and white. If you don't have a monochrome setting on your camera, take some images that you have, bring them into your whatever editing software you use, and convert them to black and white. Just don't do any fancy edits, just flip them to black and white. And see how the light and the colors and everything respond in black and white. What happens? What colors change and work together in a black and white film, in a black and white picture? Which ones don't? You'll start to understand what colors reflect similar gray tones. And you'll learn not to put those in a black and white photo, like a holly bush, green leaves, and red berries look terrible in black and white because red and green are complementary colors on the color wheel and they reflect the similar tone and they just look like all in one. But if you get 3 or 4 different shades of green from like a blue green to a bright green and you photograph those in black and white, you'll be surprised at the variety of tonal shift you get in the shades of gray on that. The other thing that you can do for monochrome black and white is when you're looking at a scene, at an image, squint. Just squint your eyes a lot. And you can squint until things almost look like they're in black and white. Takes a lot of practice. I've been able to do it since I was young. I'm very fortunate. And I spent a lot of time working in dark rooms and doing black and white. That was my first exposure. And that's really my biggest love of photography is working in black and white. But when you look at scenes in black and white and compare it to color, you can see that some work in black and white and don't. Others don't. And the same thing goes, some work in color and some don't. It might be the flattest image in a color scene, but in black and white, oh my gosh. And then we can get into infrared, black and white, which is a whole nother realm. But that's not about observing, because that's outside of your realm of sight. But what now is within your realm of sight is observing within what you see. And that's one of my absolute favorite. The monochrome black and white, the color studies. Oops, the reflections and mirrors are going to land on top of each other for me, of course. Street photography, details and textures, and shadow studies. Those are just things that you can do in your everyday life when you're out and about to train your eye, to improve your observation skills. And in doing that, hopefully, you'll have a much better time with your own photography skills. You'll be working on things that make your ability to see a scene that much easier and that much more exciting. At least for me, I think it's kind of like going on a treasure hunt. And, what are the clues? All of those things are just the clues that I use to find the treasure. So I hope that helps some. Let me know in the comments what you think. And if you have any things that you use to improve your observation skills for photography, let me know. We'd love to hear them. So until next time, though, keep looking for the beauty hidden in plain sight. It's all around you. Look up, look down, look all around, under your feet, behind you, around, under the leaves, and squint and see what you can find. And I'll see you next time.